All aboard! Ship ahoy! Yes, we come again. Candy Papa, we. It's a mass.
In the building. Make some noise. Thank you, Rosin. Thank you, RJ Strategies. Thank you to our partner, Act Blue. If you were off mute, you can come back off for the remainder of the program, but thank you for coming off at first.
Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro.
Speaking of being off mute, in true Caribbean fashion, I'm doing way too much at once. So I had a flight that was going to get me back from Florida to Newark in time for this Zoom. And of course, that flight got delayed. I am currently in the airport. So if you hear some salsa music to my right, some announcements above, or some children crying to the left, it's like the soundtrack of my life right now as I get right back to Newark. But I want to say this. I'm so honored to be here as a daughter of self-starters, rule breakers, trailblazers, waymakers, whose roots run from the low country of South Carolina to the villages of Berbice, Guyana. My father emigrated to the United States from Guyana after my grandma, Annette Fitz, came here, worked and saved up money to afford for my father and my uncles and my aunts to come. They moved to East Orange. My father met my mother in Newark. And my mom came up from Newark, from Elizabeth, New Jersey. Her people, not too dissimilar from my father's people, immigrated up here as well, but from South Carolina. As a part of the Great Migration, they came up to New Jersey, just like my father's family, for a better life. And it was through that sacrifice, through them coming together, that I am able to sit here today. Everything in their lives were normal until it wasn't. My father's American dream became an American nightmare when I was 7 years old. He was robbed and killed 2 blocks from our house. But by the grace of God, in Caribbean fashion, I don't look like what I've been through. And I created an organization called She Wins, so that young women could be able to become college and career ready, so that young women from the city of Newark who are affected by violence like me could know that they could become the next vice president and then president of the United States, like one and only Kamala Harris, who are here to celebrate here tonight. Because of their hard work, I was able to run for school board at 23 years old, becoming the youngest woman elected to the Newark Board of Education, soon after becoming one of the youngest women on the County Board of County Commissioners at 28 years old. And currently, because of all of our hard work, I'm able to serve as a New Jersey delegate, as a proud Afro-Guyanese woman, where I can cast a vote for the 2024 Democratic National Convention on behalf of a Jamaican, South Asian, Howard-educated, AKA Oakland-bred woman by the name of Kamala Harris. I say all of this because our next president, Kamala, just like each of you, knows that for us, our liberation is connected to our unity. Whether you're talking about a Shirley Chisholm, who was of Guyanese and Barbadian descent, or a Marcus Garvey of Jamaica, or Claude McKay of Jamaica, or a Cicely Tyson of Nevis and Brooklyn, or Kwame Ture of Trinidad and Tobago, or a Louis Lidl, the mother of Malcolm X of Grenada, or Toussaint Louverture of Haiti, the first leader of the first free Caribbean and Black country in the Western Hemisphere. We know that Caribbean liberation means unity, means sacrifice, means knowing that our shared struggle leads to our shared freedom. We know that la liberación y oportunidades para toda la gente caribeño es importante. The liberation and freedom of all of Caribbean people, whether the folks in your Caribbean country speak English, Creole, Patois, Spanish, French, that is all connected. And so as we celebrate Kamala Harris, as we celebrate making her our next president, we are celebrating ourselves. We are celebrating the fact that the only thing that separates us from speaking the same language or repping the same flag is a stop on a slave ship. We're celebrating that in this next president of the United States, we have a call to be better. We have a call to, in the spirit of the Jamaican proverb, against your big tree, I'm a small axe. We have a call to plan to vote. We have a call to make sure that against the big trees of racism, of poverty, of not paying people a living wage, of stifling women's rights, of making schools and homes unsafe, of making college and housing unaffordable, of guns and mass shootings in our schools and our neighborhoods. Against all of those big trees, our vote is our small axe. So we got to use it. And we use it when we vote. We use it when we volunteer. We use it when we call our cousins and family and them in those battleground states and say, hey, are you registered? Are you registered to vote? Do you have a plan to vote? And make sure you're voting for the person who is living her life and her legacy to make sure that we can live our lives too. I'm so honored to be here as someone just like each of you, the Caribbean Massive, who is celebrating our next president, Kamala Harris, where we'll make sure that this November and every other day after that, we do our Black job, our brown job, our Caribbean job of voting like our lives depend on it, because they do. Because they absolutely do. Thank you so much. I can't wait to continue celebrating with us, not just on this November, but all the days after. Love you lots. Big up to the Caribbean.
Adorian, thank you so much for those inspiring words and all the work that you have done in the community. You are absolutely correct. Our life does depend on us voting. But before we get out to vote, we have to make sure that we're properly registered. So our next speaker is a student organizer at Montclair State University. Sasha, you have the floor.
Hold somebody in your heart, audience, because this election is.
Hi, my name is Sasha Andrews. First, I want to say I am proud to be African American and Guyanese, and just as proud to be a young Black girl from Newark making a difference. If you have your flag, I want to see you wave it. If you don't, that's all right too. Show some love for where you're from in the chat. I would love to see where everybody's from, because once again, this is to represent the Caribbeans, but also to raise encouragement to Kamala. So I would love to see like everybody just communicating in the chat, because I want to just speak to everybody and get to know everybody. I hope y'all are having a great evening and are just excited as I am to bring light and encouragement for Kamala Harris, the next president of the United States, and we're gonna claim it. As a young person, I believe in Kamala because she believes in me. I had the chance to meet her in high school, and she told me and all the girls that we were beautiful, extraordinary, and that we could do anything that we put our minds to. So on the count of three, I want to hear everyone make some noise to rep where you're from and to show love to the young people like me and our next president, Kamala Harris. 1, 2, 3.
Wepa, wepa.
Trinidad. Okay, so I'm happy to meet everybody, and I'm just so excited to be here. So to jump into what I want to say, I just want to say that I remember being 11 years old and taken to one of my community service events in my hometown of Newark. I helped paint and clean up a local school with my fellow She-Went scholars, shout out to Dorian, so that their building would look more beautiful. Within the next 2 years, I will be leading my own service projects. I helped prepare toiletry bags for women and their children living in a shelter as survivors of domestic abuse. I served as a peer mentor and a motivational speaker for other girls like me who survived being bullied for being different or having darker skin throughout high school and college, and instead help instill in girls that women like Kamala Harris help instill in me and all of us, that we are beautiful, that we are talented and powerful beyond measures. Today, as many probably wouldn't believe, I am 20 years old and I am a rising junior at Montclair State University. I want to be a future nurse, and I consider myself a motivational speaker. What I did not fully understand when I was younger that I know now was that every action is connected to another action. What do you mean by that, Sasha? Well, I'm glad you asked. We wouldn't have school buildings that don't reflect the beauty and brilliance of the kids inside them if we had more elected officials fighting for educational equity for all kids. We wouldn't have mothers and children fleeing home in the middle of the night if we had a society that, one, believed women the first time. Second, if we had abusers that was held accountable. And 3, if we taught our boys and men how to truly just be a man. And we would not have beautiful Black and brown girls be blind to their own beauty and brilliance if we told them that 1, being smart makes you cool. 2, that your melanin is Black girl magic. And 3, if you keep working hard and striving to make the world a better place, you may even become the next president of the United States of America. Because it's possible. It truly is. I stand before you as someone who was once a girl doing what I could to give back to my community through pouring into young girls and my community, just like so many poured into me. Today, I'm not just a young girl, I'm a young woman who can and will vote to serve my community, and I will be voting for Kamala Harris. Us as the youth have the ability to step in and let our voices be heard. So let's make it be heard. I want each and every one of you to do these 3 things, just these 3 things. They're not big, but they will make a change in order to get us to where we need to be as a community. 1 is to register at least 3 young people in your life to vote. I just registered my whole house to vote, and I have a lot of siblings. 1 less vote is one voice going unheard. So if you have the ability to vote, make sure you do, and help bring awareness to those who can. 2nd, bring a young person to the polls. When we vote, we stand for ourselves, our family, but also the generation next to come. I feel so good knowing that as a young voter, I don't just walk the walk, but I talk the talk. And I want everyone in my generation to be able to do this too. 3rd, continue to pray. I want to say for myself, our country and our people everywhere, we should just continue to pray. I don't know about y'all, but I'm a young woman of faith, and this is so much bigger than an election. We are really going up against demons. Our world is in a battle of spiritual warfare, and voting is one way of many that we can use the tool God has given us to be victorious in the face of our enemies. Thank you so much for your time. Let's vote for Kamala Harris, because a vote for her is a vote for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sasha. I know that everyone here is delighted to hear from you and to understand that we do have young people who are out there trying to make a difference and trying to move us forward. I'm going to open up the chat for questions. And oh, I see one now. This question pertains to how do we get Caribbean Americans more involved within the political process?
I'll start. Caribbean people, particularly we talk about Essex County and New Jersey, are some of the most politically active demographics already. Point blank, period. There is no Essex County Democratic Party. There is no Democratic Party in New Jersey without the Black and the Caribbean vote. And the numbers show this. And so, first of all, we need to reimagine the narrative that we aren't engaged and we aren't voting, because we are. We're paying taxes, we're working, we're taking care of our community, and we're showing up to the polls. So number 1, we need to highlight our stories. That's why I'm so glad that you put this together, Rosalind, because we are already engaged. How do we make sure more people know? Secondly, we also have to talk to the people in our families who are right in the middle. We know there's at least one person in our family or in our friend circle who is only going to vote because we tell them, who's only going to register to vote because we tell them. So it's on us. We got to call them. We got to send those texts. We got to physically bring them the voter registration papers if we have to. We have been so honored. I've been able to help get over 20 young people trained to be poll workers. We could also let people in the Caribbean community know that you can get paid to work elections as poll workers, right? And so people are actually more likely to vote too when they're literally already at the polls for their job. So 1, we are already voting. Liberation and the fight for voting in our people is in our heritage. That's why we celebrate Flag Day. That's why we celebrate Independence Day so much already, because we care about this stuff. We live this already. We just have to do the work of continuing to make sure people know.
Thank you so much, Adorian. We certainly are a resilient people. There is another question that has come up in the chat that I am going to direct to Sasha, and it is asking, how do we get more young people aware and involved in our civics and political spheres?
Well, I would simply just say, to have like, I would consider people like myself, the youth, the ones that are like putting themselves out there and that are trying to make the change, to speak to the youth. I feel like it's different from when the youth speak to the youth than like when an adult or a parent, guardian, or somebody is trying to speak to you about politics, because I feel like from a kid's point of view, like to us, going to the polls, like for a kid going to the polls or something, or sitting there and getting people to register to vote and different things like that, it may seem boring. But when they see another kid the same age as them sitting there doing it, but also feeling empowered by it, but also trying to educate them on it and trying to make sure that they know just as much as I do, because I feel like if I know anything and I'm holding it for myself, it's not going to better my community and it's not going to better my people. And so I always want to educate and build my community up. And I feel like once we just educate ourselves, but also just show up for one another, like even if a person is only able to carry that 25% out of 100, you carry that 75% for them, and you help to push them and reach them to their goals and different things like that, and just continue to pour in them. The same people that pour into you, you pour back into other people. And that's what I do. And I truly believe that God is also in the center of it all, because I believe that right now, the youth really are the change makers. If we look right now, social media is such a big platform to where kids are able to spread the message about politics. I feel like youth haven't been so invested as they are now. I feel like because of the TikTok and the Instagram and all of that, I feel like that's how we know everything that we know now. And so I feel like as we just continue to pour into them, and as we continue to just be there and speak life into them, even if they're not listening, you keep talking, because eventually they're going to catch on. And so it's like, we also just got to be patient with them, but continue to pray for them as well. Thank you.
Sasha, you're absolutely right. I just wanted to uplift Jasmine Metellus, who was in the chat. She's the president of the Essex County Young Democrats. And I see Onika and Crystal, who are parents of amazing children, I know, who do really great work in the community, young women. There are so many young people in Newark and Essex County, New Jersey, who are already involved. We just have to support them and support the Sashas and all of the baby girls who are really already brilliant, doing incredible things, because they do care. And a lot of times in those TikTok comments and those TikToks that we try to act like are distracting them, the kids are actually getting informed and they're learning about political issues, and they're getting radicalized in a good way by some of what they're seeing online. So we can't discount how they learn, how they engage. We have to lift it up. And so thank you for putting this together for that to happen.
Good evening, my fellow Caribbean brothers and sisters. We are not going back. I want to speak. I came to this country 22 years ago in pursuit of the American dream. And that dream is alive and well until now, but it is not guaranteed in the future. Caribbeans contributed to this country's economy in small and big businesses, our food, our culture, and yes, our taxes. We are in government, we are leadership in healthcare and other industries. And having come to this country for the last 22 years, I've been working in public health, especially in the nonprofit sector. And when I hear things like Trump calling one Caribbean country a shithole country, the question is, which one is next? As a fourth generation Indian from Guyana, turned Black, I live in Brooklyn. I don't know if someone could ever turn Black. But Black in America means if you're not white, if you ain't white, you're Black. Because racism in this country, as we all know, is institutionalized. I support Kamala Harris for president because of freedom, equality, and justice. These are enshrined in the preamble of the United States Constitution. She will uphold the laws and fight for all Americans, whether you're an immigrant or not, whether you're Black or white. And the preamble that we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure blessings of liberty to ourselves, our prosperity, do ordain establish the Constitution. And the reason why I'm talking about the Constitution is because Donald Trump is coronated by the Supreme Court and believes he's king and he is not subject to the law. So what is on the ballot this year? As a gay man, LGBTQ rights to love who I love and to marry who I love and to be free like every straight person who are afforded these same rights. That is on the ballot. The Supreme Court is on the ballot. As I said, they recently coronated Trump as the king. The freedom to have children and have a cat at the same time is okay. A woman's right to choose. Giving billionaires tax breaks to continue to screw the middle class with price gouging, and we, the middle class, is going to pay for that. Black jobs don't exist, because if they are, we are hired because we are qualified to do the job. And Kamala Harris is qualified to do that job. Don't forget that Donald Trump is a convicted felon. He's a coochie grabber. The court determined that he's a sexual rapist. He's a fraud. And by extension, weird person. Most importantly, healthcare is on the ballot, where everyone should have the same access to quality healthcare as a human right, and it's not determined by the zip code you live in. I'm in East Flatbush, New York, Brooklyn, New York, which is one of the zip codes that is not getting services and healthcare as they rightly deserve. Care for the elderly. Our baby boomers who contributed so much to this economy, but their end of life, the quality of the end of life is at peril. I am taking care of my mother, 86-year-old mother with dementia. And it is very difficult to get insurance company and this healthcare system to understand our culture and the needs of caregivers. I know Kamala is working on ensuring that seniors have better access to stay at home and to live and die in dignity. Caregivers will have under her plan opportunities and access to resources that will make them take care of their parents or the loved ones at home. I strongly believe that my homegirl from the Caribbean, Jamaica, and Indian descent should never turn Black. She was always who she is. And for these reasons and Project 2025, I'm voting for Kamala Harris. And I can't wait to call her Madam President. So it is not just us now on this call and in our community to be excited, because there is that sense of whoo, whoo, whoo. But we have to make sure that that energy is translated to votes. To have energy is one thing, but get to the poll and cast that vote is the most crucial and critical thing in this election. I tell you what I would do. I am voting down ballot for all Democrats because freedom is on the line. So let's go out there, mobilize, get our family and friends, be energized, do what we need to do, knock on doors, make phone calls, volunteer with the campaign. We are not going back. Thank you.
Thank you so
Yay.
much, Rosalind. Thank you. And thank you to all of the speakers and everyone who organized this and for your vision and your advocacy also, Rosalind. So listen, I am here. I am an African-American woman. I am here as an ally to the Caribbean diaspora. I have a very long history helping to organize all people of the African and Caribbean diaspora because unity is important. And for years, I have spoken at rallies and festivals that we've organized with that goal of unity to just say that if we only got together, then no one could stop us, that we could actually amass political power for good and make sure that we keep dictators such as Donald Trump out of office. And that is what this is about. So I am here as an ally, as the wife of a beautiful Haitian king, Dimitri Charles, and all of our Haitian babies, and my mother-in-law who's holding me down right now. Shout out to her, Miss Edleen Charles, a powerful woman of God, a praying woman, who is downstairs with my husband, with my babies right now. Otherwise, you'd see all of my little ducklings coming in on the Zoom screen if it weren't for them. But you know, we are here, and I am here as an ally with that rich history of the Haitian community. And let's talk about for a second. And I see a good friend, Berkson Lenius, who's a city council person and the first Haitian American on the East Orange City Council, who's actually on this call too. Because you know what's so special about the history of Haiti, which is a part of the Caribbean, is that they didn't wait for their freedom, they took it. They took their freedom. And that is what we have to do at the voting polls this coming November. We have got to take our freedom and we've got to vote for Kamala Harris. Vice President, we're gonna drop the vice and just call her President Kamala Harris in order to save our democracy, in order to save our freedom. We are not here only because VP Harris is a woman of color. We're here because she's the most qualified. She's the most logical. She is the one who makes the most sense. She is the one who understands the policies that we need, and she's the one committed to keeping our freedom. She's a qualified human being who has served in a statewide office as a prosecutor, and also as a US Senator, and now as a vice president, and has done a wonderful job. The very contributions of President Biden, and make no mistake about it, he will go down in history as one of the best presidents of all time, President Biden, for his record, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act, cancellation of student loans, so many things, but his record is also her record. She is the most qualified candidate, and I'll tell you, it would not have sat well with me, and I would not have been quiet if President Biden stepped down and anyone else were to step forward, other than the one who was literally next in line, and that is our great Vice President Kamala Harris. And I am so excited that she is going to be the nominee, and I am a delegate and get to have a place in history and vote for her in Chicago and then again in November. You know, many people of the diaspora come to this country for freedom and opportunity. And this freedom of opportunity is unfortunately at risk of not existing. See, I understand as an American. I am the granddaughter of a sharecropper from Durham, North Carolina. I am the great-granddaughter of a man who was born within years of the Emancipation Proclamation. I know something about freedom, as Black people have fought in every single war. My grandfather, originally from Mobile, Alabama, who was a merchant marine, my uncle, Uncle Smitty, who was a World War II veteran, even to my own father, an 82nd Airborne paratrooper, Sergeant First Class, trained to be anywhere in the world in 18 hours and to jump out of airplanes into war. To protect what? Our freedom. To protect what? Our democracy. My father stood at the Berlin Wall, protecting against an ideology that was still floating in the air, that was leftover remnants from Hitler and Stalin. My father led troops across the desert against dictator Saddam Hussein and was there when he lit the oil fields on fire, causing mass amounts of death, pain, environmental destruction. He stood on the border of North and South Korea to protect the freedom and democracy of South Korea. See, I grew up all over this beautiful country in military communities, knowing that wherever we are from, we are Americans. And we are all a part of the melting pot that the diaspora is a part of for sure. And that our country is worth fighting for. Our country and all the freedoms that we have gained over the years must not be lost to a man who said he would be a dictator if elected. Let's talk about that for a second. We have Supreme Court Justice Alito who's flying the American flag upside down, which is disgraceful. And he's flying the American flag upside down in symbolism and a nod in favor to those who staged a coup d'etat on January 6th to overthrow our government and our democracy. This coup d'etat led to the death of Brian Sicknick, who was a New Jersey native who actually also served our country, whose parents and sister cannot believe that he did not lose his life in a foreign war, but rather in a domestic one. This is what is at risk. Donald Trump has already told us who he will be, and he has already showed us who he is. Speaking of justices, we have Justin Thomas, Clarence Thomas, disgraceful, taking nabs and jabs and shots at Brown versus Board of Education, which is a historic case that integrated the school systems throughout this country. Oh, when I tell you what we could lose if Donald Trump gets back in and appoints more Supreme Court justices, and the freedoms that we can lose as minority groups all over. We have got to fight. We have got to fight. We have got to organize. We have got to have courage. We have got to lead one another to freedom. And like Harriet Tubman, the Black Moses who led slaves to freedom and served in the Union Army as a spy, Kamala Harris, President Kamala Harris, is going to lead us to preserve that freedom, and that for generations to come, in honor of all the generations before us who fought so hard for the freedom. See, when we vote, and what policies are at stake, when we vote, we're going to be voting for sensible gun control. We're going to be voting for women's rights, which, by the way, a woman's right to choose should be applied to every single aspect of her life. That's real feminism. How many children she wants to have or not. Does she want to be married or not? Who she wants to love? How much money does she want to make? What career does she want to have, or does she want to have a career? A woman's right to choose, I am 100% in support of that at all times. And unfortunately, it is still on the ballot, even though our grandmothers had already secured women's rights for us. We are still battling for them to this day. Oh, on that ballot are issues of international relations, as we see the importance of protecting democracy all around the globe and supporting our allies and having them support us. We will be voting for the health of our planet, climate and environmental justice, the right to breathe clean air. We will be voting to secure the dreams of our ancestors, the dreams of our own, the dreams of our children, and of course, that of President Harris. because she is the dream and the hope of the slave, as great Auntie Maya Angelou said. And she is going to be our liberator. She will save our democracy. We must not rest idle. We must not allow ourselves to grow faint. We must encourage everyone to go to that polling station, to cast our votes, to vote by mail, to vote early. We've got to educate the masses because we have to save our democracy. And if you vote, that is how we're going to do it. Viva Kamala Harris.
Can you help us understand the consequences of the overturning of Roe v. Wade?
Absolutely, and thank you for that question. So I mentioned my grandfather, who was a merchant marine. When he came home, he told me a story. I was very favored by my grandfather. We had a very close relationship. I thought it was just because I was cool, but I later found out from him that it's actually because I reminded him so much of his sister, who actually died during a back alley abortion. And he told me that story, and I keep her photo in my office as a reminder that every woman deserves the right to have access to good health care. Every person, every human has the right to have access to good health care, but that women should make decisions with their doctors and that it should be occurring in a safe place. I don't promote abortions. I don't know what abortion rights are, but I do know what woman's right to choose is. And I believe very, very deeply in a woman's right to choose, to have autonomy over her own body and over her own decisions. And the overturning of Roe v. Wade is a direct attack on that. To have a legislature determine whether or not a woman should create life, regardless of the circumstances, even if her own life is at risk, or even if she's a victim of rape or incest or these terrible things, to have a legislature think that it is their place to dictate that is absolutely ridiculous. And I want to say that it is incredibly ridiculous for women to hear these types of debates. To any man who may be out there who doesn't necessarily understand, well, how would you feel if we were debating on the floor at the Capitol building in Trenton or in our great Capitol in Washington, D.C., your right to have vasectomy or your right to have Viagra? In the way in which they debate our right for birth control, in which they debate our right to have access to good health care in order to make that decision about our bodies. It sounds ludicrous. And that is the way it sounds to women, and that's the way it really should sound to everyone. So, I hope that when we elect Kamala Harris, that we put this whole thing to bed for the last time. As mentioned, our grandmothers, led the charge, and now here we are leading it again. But we know that democracy is fragile. We know that our freedoms are just one generation away from being lost. Well, I'm not willing for our democracy and our freedoms to be lost on my watch with my generation. I'm a millennial, and I'm not willing to let it happen. And I know everyone on this call isn't either. So that is what the overturning of Roe v. Wade is. And as more Supreme Court justices get appointed, it could become even more dangerous. We could be looking at Mr. and Mrs. Waterford, where if you watch Handmaid's Tale and the dystopian drama, it could really spiral out of control. And I am not willing to lose our freedoms and our rights, and I am dedicated to fighting for them. I'm happy that the state of New Jersey codified Roe v. Wade in state law. And we made sure that no one would be criminalized, no doctor for practicing medicine and doing what they believe is right and what the desire of their patient is in their own privacy. So I'm very proud to lead the charge on a lot of women's rights issue, and including making sure that New Jersey becomes one of the safest places for women to birth and have as many babies as they want to have. I was in office while 9 months pregnant. I have a 6-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 1.5-year-old, and we have a wonderful blended family and a 17-year-old who lives here too. So, you know, I am all about family and making sure that we're fighting for women's rights all the way around. And it is no one's business what a woman discusses with her doctor.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. And I just wanted to bring some Caribbean energy up in here. Okay. Representing the Dominican Republic. All right. Hermanas y hermanos, everybody hands up. I am Dr. Melissa Barron. I am proud to be here with all of you celebrating, because this is a celebration of our uniqueness, our different aspects, our cultural identities, and what makes us beautiful and boldly courageous in the face of what we are seeing in today's geopolitical, educational, and even in the job atmospheres wherever we are centralized and localized. And I know that everyone can understand when I say that it has been a rough road. It has been a tough road. And I'm the proud daughter of Dominican immigrants who, you know, came to this country much like most of your parents in the backgrounds with $20 in their pockets and made it worth their time to give me an education, to make me understand the importance of giving back and looking into the retrospective mirror that was my family, and knowing that when we elevate one, we elevate all, and the importance of having that mindset to be together and know that we can't do it alone. We all need each other. And so with this, I want to say that it's been a pleasure to be born in the United States. I was originally born and raised in New York City, but Patterson has helped to cultivate me. I've been here since I was a teenager. So I consider myself a fellow Pattersonian. And much like a lot of people who are on the call, love to the Patterson people. We are seeing things in our city that maybe we think are minimal, but we don't realize that in observing locally what is going on and the structures of what is locally surrounding us, it is magnified and exponentially expressed on a national level. And I think it begins with the disdain of thinking that you don't have a voice, thinking that your voice does not matter. And it's up to us to tell people you do have a voice. We are here to amplify your voice. We are looking for people that are going to amplify that voice and take your message to the next level. We are looking in our interest in Vice President Harris because of what it means to so many of us on the call. So many of us. I mean, representation, huge, to have a voice that can be amplified in rooms where most of us wouldn't even have been looked at years ago. Isn't that the truth? Wouldn't even have been considered a part of the conversation years ago, and not so many years ago, considering the movement of women's suffrage, which was not even the other day, yesterday, basically, and everything that's gone on. You know, she would represent us. She would have, you know, her Jamaican heritage and her Caribbean culture would give us a sense of representation in the highest levels of government, potentially leading to recognition of our contributions, because we are all important, and our independent nations and our independent cultural identities have cultivated roots in this country and have helped to form and shape this country as well. We are a part of the mosaic that designs that American flag. We are just as part of those 50 states as anyone else. So it is time that we begin to think of ourselves as a part of this established union and not as imposters that live in a country that is not to their regard. We are just as important as anyone else. We are here to represent. We echo the voice of our ancestors and everything they struggled to go through in their Caribbean homes, and everything they've went through and still go through to educate their children and get them to that next level. We need to strengthen these communities So I've been on the ground in Patterson, and the most common complaint that I hear is, people are just, they have disdain about the trust in the political atmosphere, about whether they are being heard, about whether their concerns are taken into account. And that's really difficult to do when you are in an environment where people do not look like you and I. And so I'm coming back to my biology and explaining that I have a degree in STEM science, less than 2% in the United States. And I'm proud of that. But I'm not proud because it shouldn't be the same as it was 20 years ago. We are still at that low, pathetic number. And the sadness is that the higher up we go and the more we go educationally, politically, whatever it is, and we look to the left and we look to the right, we don't see our brothers and sisters accompanying us to that next level. And I have a problem with that. And it's time that we say enough and that we bring up the next generation and we hold out our hands and look back to the people coming behind us, that it's not about us, rather than the movement and the impact that we are doing. What is the legacy that we are leaving behind? What is the footprint that we are here to leave behind? And we can do that by supporting someone like Vice President Harris, who has historical connections to Jamaica. And we know the resilience of the Caribbean people because we have all survived it. Our ancestors tell the story of survival, resilience, and potential breakthroughs, and how they have been able to raise a generation of leaders, and dare I say, presidents, lawyers, and doctors like myself and so many on the call. And that's why it is important for us to continue embracing our culture, knowing that it is okay to be represented. I feel like a lot of times we tend to hold back on things because we are afraid of change. We are afraid of what we have never seen before. We have never seen a woman president. I just want to commend people like Senator Timberlake on the call. You are an aspiring star for so many of us who are looking at you and saying, wow, if she could do that, I could do that too. As a woman, it is important for us to hold each other up and be that next bridge connecting those young girls who want to be great and want to be wonderful and want to emulate in the steps of someone like Vice President Harris. So as a professor in my regular professional trajectory, I work with a lot of young people who get to the level where they don't know what they're going to do next. They have no idea when the voting registrations are. They have no idea how to register to become voters. They don't know how to organize and unionize and prioritize and have their strength be heard in numbers. And I think that's important, teaching young people from the beginning the importance of organizing, getting things together. Because guess what? We may all speak with accents, but we don't think with accents. We all have similar problems. Everybody's problem is our problem. Our communities face the same challenges. And it is up to us to look for problem solving and look for things that will help us bridge those gaps and work together. I mean, as a STEM person, I think it's important to look at how we break barriers and how our generation, second generation, the young lady from Montclair, Sasha, wonderful. You are breaking generational things that we never thought we could achieve. We never thought possible. You are the face of freedom. You are the face of the new up and coming leadership. You are what we need, right? Innovation and impact. And I think it's important to have that representation and advocacy, not only in politics, but in decision making, in informing the new people that are coming up, and really taking down the fear of stepping up. Because a lot of times when people want to step up, there's this fear factor attached to it. And letting them know that, guess what? You are not alone. You have a bunch of us here. You have the West Caribbean, the Caribbeans, everybody coming together. That it is important that we stick together and that we hold our own. Because at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, it is all of our responsibilities to bridge those gaps and really do it for our children. So as much as I do in the community, from toy drives to food drives, everything, you name it, I think one of the most essential parts is being a mother. And as a mother, I am truly petrified about the future of this country. I have young boys who are asking me questions that, frankly, I don't know the answer to. And that is scary. And so I want to pray on this country and all of us that we get our act together and that we work together as a unified force and understand the importance of our solidified voice, understand the importance of fighting, understand the importance of we over me, because it is our struggle. And if we don't stand together and have this community upliftment that includes inspiration for all future generations, only then can we have global impact that can contribute not only to the local politics, but to our national politics as well. Because a lot of times people only become interested in politics when it's time to vote for president. And we don't realize there's school board races, there's council races, there's committee races. We don't vote, we don't become engaged. And it is all of our responsibilities, because these are the things that make the tiny decisions that affect us, our children, their children, et cetera, et cetera. And this is what I'm seeing in the community. People are beginning to feel energized around the idea of having Vice President Harris pick up the torch and say, you know what? I'm different. You've never had a woman. I'm multicultural. I look like you. I'm accomplished. I have the experience that goes with the job, and we can do this together. And I think that's very uplifting. And I'm very proud to be on this call. And I'm very proud to stand as a woman in STEM and in politics and coming up in a city like Patterson, where we are just at the bridge, at the climax of our political potential. And that's for everybody on the call.
Sorry about that. I needed this call. The crazy thing is that I needed to be on this call. And I would have been on just as a guest because I think it's so important. I want to give a shout out to one of my girls, Ritzy Morales, former district director of Congressman Pasquale, who's been, out of the fray for a while. And the minute Vice President Harris was named, basically to or pushed through, because she wasn't even a thought. And I want to recognize Ritzy, because Ritzy just responded to me. So does that mean we go to work? And tonight I say, Ritzy, hell yeah, we go to work as much as we have to. So Rosalind, you and I were speaking the other night, and there is a word when it comes to languages and places. I'm okay with the word diversity, but the definition of the word diversity is division. And I will no longer ascribe to that. I think, and I know from hearing everyone on this platform, that the word I want to use is commonality, because I think we have more in common than when we don't have. And until we don't come into that mindset, it's going to be difficult to move forward. I would be remiss as a Puerto Rican woman, a Puerto Rican Latina woman, if I didn't talk about a young, progressive congresswoman from New York City, or from New York rather, Alexandra Ocasio, AOC as they call her, right? It was June 18th going into the early morning of June 19th. And this young woman took to Instagram. Now, I don't have Instagram. We're Sasha, I'm sorry, but I am gonna get it now. And she took to Instagram to call out all the elitists in our party. And basically took to Instagram and said, you know what? Maybe President Biden needs to step down, but unless he is pushing, or unless they are pushing for Vice President Kamala Harris to come to the forefront, it's not going to matter. 22 national publications the following day on June 19th picked up that Instagram. And so that's what happens when we look at our commonalities and we come together. This young progressive, right, from New York, a sister of color, basically said what everybody was thinking but was afraid. And I'm not saying that I'm not giving her the only credit, but I have to give her acknowledgement for stepping up and calling out the people in our party, because I don't want to get it twisted. There are a lot of elitists in our parties that, you know, still don't feel that Kamala Harris should be in that position. So that's why it is imperative on us to work harder than we've ever worked, to work longer, to use our time, our talents, and our treasures. Listen to this. Our time, volunteer. We all want to get paid. No, let's volunteer. Let's find people that can volunteer. We're all talented, or else we've all been involved. We're operatives one way or another in campaigns. So we have to get engaged. We have to get involved and use our talents. And for those of us that have treasures, let's share them. Let's put them towards her campaign, because I could tell you in my lifetime, I have never seen a groundswell like I've seen in the past 2 weeks in this country. When I opened up the news report the other day and I saw white dudes for Kamala Harris, I'm like, I saw the hand of God at work. And I'm telling you, we ain't seen nothing yet on both sides, because what they're calling weak, bleak, I am calling bright. But we are going to go through dark tunnels, and we're going to go through dark times, and we have to keep the faith going. Sasha, I thank you for your prayers. I want to bring more people into that prayer circle, because I know we're all excited, and we have to carry this excitement through November. And so I really, you know, I can't emphasize that enough. I am excited. I am excited with all the women and you know, the men and Steve and everyone that has spoken. You have all inspired me. And Brittany always, Senator Timberlake always inspires me. Dr. Barol is a force to be reckoned with. I did, for the first time, I've met her before probably, because I stay in Essex. The commissioner, Mary Thomas Adorian, very, very, you know, just so makes me so proud. And we have a lot of work to do. So I don't want to. I'm done, but I just want to tell. We have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do, and we have to fight and work every day like our lives depend on it. Because guess what? They do.
I'm former state representative Donna McLeod. I'm actually the first Jamaican born to have served in the Georgia House of Representatives. I served 2 terms in the House. And I actually was trying to get on a little earlier, but we actually scheduled a call ourselves in Georgia because we're trying to organize, and I live in Gwinnett County, and Gwinnett County happens to have the 3rd largest immigrant group, happens to be Jamaicans in Gwinnett County. It is the most diverse county in the state of Georgia. And so we do carry a lot of power. And as you guys know, anyone that lives outside of Georgia, we became the center of the political universe because we delivered 2 senators, 2 U.S. senators in Ossoff, and as well as Reverend Warnock. And I actually want to just come on and say just a few things about being strategic. The bottom line is we don't win the presidency with the popular vote. We win the presidency with the electoral college vote. And so we have to be very intentional about ensuring that we're winning the states that we need to win. Georgia's now a battleground state as well. So those of us that live in those battleground states need to be even more intentional. I had 2 calls today. One was before my call with the Caribbean community. I had a call with leaders and sororities and fraternities, as well as local leaders in Gwinnett County, because where we have a gap is kids that are turning 18 years of age to get them registered to vote. So this about being strategic. So what we've done is we've got these organizations together, and we've decided that we're going to each take schools within the county to make sure that we use the week of September the 16th, which is the 17th is a National Voter Registration Day, but use that week to really emphasize getting young people registered to vote. And so I'm very strategic person. I'm a chemical engineer by profession. So for me, this issue of Project 2025 is not a joke. It is real. It is literally rewriting the Constitution of the United States to not be a republic anymore, right? And so this election is marked by, of course, our enthusiasm to elect the first Black woman, and of course, she's of Caribbean descent, so even more beautiful. And I'm a Jamaican, so it means a whole lot to me. But we have to be very, very what should I say, intentional, and ensuring that we have the facts about this woman as well, so that the lies don't get spread. And I think you guys have probably talked about that. But strategy for me right now is the most important. So in your area, on where you live, I really would look at what needs to be done to get people registered and we are in the state of Georgia, we are under enormous amount of pressure. We constantly have challenge votes because of a piece of legislation that I was in the Georgia House when it happened, and I tried to stop it. I was on MSNBC, I was on CNN, and I called it Jim Crow 2.0. And that law is really wreaking havoc down here in Georgia, because anyone can challenge another person's vote. And so we are having a really hell of a time down here. And so for me, being strategic, being intentional, in making sure we get people registered and getting them to the polls. It's not just the registration part, it's also getting them to the polls. And so if I could urge everyone that's on this call right now to really focus on the area that you live in and being strategic, seeing where there are gaps that might need to be filled, because politics is a numbers game. And it's not a game, but it's all about numbers. But the end of the number, the only number that really matters is that electoral college number of 270 votes.
Thank you so much for speaking. I love your point about this being a numbers game. After all, you're from the state where we heard Trump haggling the Secretary of State for
11,708 votes. We are very familiar with that number. We're going to put that on his jail uniform. You'll find it then. I have this quote: knowledge is the most powerful thing you give to yourself, but the vote is the most powerful thing we give to each other. And let me be clear, we do not have a right to vote. None of us on this line actually have a right. We've been amended to a constitution, and the only people with a right to vote in that constitution were white men that own land. And so poor white men really did not have any right to vote either. And they've managed to convince them to be better than us.
That's so true.
Pretty sad.
Thank you so much, Rosalind. It gives me nothing but great honor and joy to be a part of tonight's dialogue and discussion. I am elated. I send a hearty welcome and greeting to everybody in the Caribbean Massive. So I know we've been throwing up flags and hearts and big ups and shout out and enough respect and all of those blessings. And I come bringing all of that right here from my home office in Irvington, New Jersey. I am really, really thrilled to be a part of tonight's conversation. And I wanted to simply start with kind of just sharing a little bit about my personal story, just as my journey as being a member of the Jamaican diaspora. This is a story about identity, connection, and the powerful pull of heritage. I grew up in the city of Newark in the Great West Ward, very far from Jamaica, but I always felt a deep sense of pride in my roots. My parents made sure that my home was filled with vibrant culture from our homeland, from the rich flavors of jerk chicken to soup on Saturday to ackee and sawfish and fried dumpling on a Sunday morning, to the infectious rhythms of reggae and dancehall pumping from the radio station with my famous radio DJ host, Mr. Jeff Barnes. Jamaica was a constant presence in my life. But it's more than just the food and the music. It was the stories of my parents and my grandparents, the stories of resilience, of fighting for independence, of a people who, despite the odds, thrived with an unbreakable spirit. These stories were a bedrock of my identity, teaching me the values of hard work, community, and perseverance. The rich tapestry of my heritage gave me a unique perspective, and I learned to embrace my dual identity with pride. Being a part of the Jamaican diaspora means carrying a piece of the island with you wherever you go. It means celebrating our culture, advocating for our people, and contributing to the global community while staying rooted in our traditions. It also means understanding the responsibility we have to honor our ancestors' legacy by making a positive impact in our adopted homes and giving back to our communities. In a world that is increasingly interconnected, our diaspora has a unique role to play. We are the bridges between cultures, bearers of rich traditions, and champions of a resilient and dynamic heritage. You may ask why I share my personal story. I share my personal story because it gives me great pride. My cheeks have been almost, not in pain, but they have been so raised high in the past couple of days because of the level of excitement and enthusiasm of what we know is going to be a historical and momentous occasion, when we can say, Madam President Harris. I suspect VP Harris shares a similar story to mine, one of rich history, one of rich in culture, and one that has prepared her to be the trailblazing leader that we know she is. Her achievements symbolize progress and the possibility for future generations of women and people of color to aspire to the highest levels of leadership. Her resilience and tenacity is like no other. Her ability to navigate and succeed in often challenging and male-dominated environments is a testament to her strength and perseverance. Her ability to serve as a champion of diversity and her commitment to be an advocate for justice and equality. Now, some of you who may know me on this line know that I am a nature lover. And for those of you who don't, you will soon get to know. I love being outdoors. I am outdoors for the purposes of finding respite in nature when I'm in busy spaces and places. I'm a huge proponent to encourage people to be in nature and engage in activities that take you away from the everyday life of busyness and help you to really center yourself and ground yourself to the luster that exists. Tonight, I really wanted to touch on critical issues as it pertains to justice and equality, but specifically around the heart of our communities as it pertains to environmental justice and equitability and access to public space. These issues are not just about preserving our environment or ensuring everyone has a part to play in. They are about justice, equality, and the right to live in a healthy, inclusive community. Environmental justice seeks to address the disproportionate impact of environmental hazards on marginalized communities. Far too long, low-income neighborhoods and communities of color have borne the brunt of pollution, toxic waste, and other environmental injustices. This has led to severe health disparities, including higher rates of asthma, cancer, and other illnesses. Our esteemed Vice President, soon to be President, has delivered a number of policies as it pertains to environmental justice, specific to cleaner air, clean water, and healthier communities. Initiatives and efforts and policies such as Justice 40, which is an initiative that looks to ensure that federal climate, clean energy, affordable and sustainable housing, clean water, and other investments to disadvantaged communities are better addressed to address overburden issues of pollution. Under the administration, Vice President Harris has made historic investments in environmental justice through things like the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and Inflation Reduction Act, which are intended to plug orphan oil and gas wells, remediate abandoned mine lands, replace lead service lines, increase equitable access to trees and green spaces, install air monitors to screen for pollution, purchase clean school buses, improve public transportation with low and no emission buses, and more. Prioritizing resilience, jobs, and workers with historic climate action. Efforts like this have really worked to design workforce training and service initiatives that ensure more young people have access to the skills-based training they need for good paying careers in clean energy and climate resilience. These are just some of the initiatives and efforts. The actions that have been taken really look to address advocacy around stronger environmental regulations. They stand up the necessary policies to support with the reduction of pollution and invest in clean energy. They raise awareness, and they are actively supporting organizations and movements that are fighting for environmental justice to local, national, and global levels. But it is also our roles as individuals and as civically engaged representatives across this country to play a significant role in sustaining and maintaining what it means for that fight for justice and equality. We need to make sure we're educating ourselves and others. We need to be more involved with local organizations working on these issues, volunteering our time. Someone mentioned volunteering earlier, donating our treasures, supporting these campaigns, attending public meetings, and advocating for policies that promote environmental justice and equitable public spaces. And more importantly, use your voice. Use your voice on social media, use your voice in your community, raise awareness, and call for action. Voting is a cornerstone of our democracy. It is a tool that allows us to have to say what we want to say when we want things to be governed to represent our interests. When we vote, we're not only selecting just a candidate, we are expressing our values, our hopes, our vision, and our desires for the future. Jamaicans say one thing, one cocoa full basket. Each of our votes are that cocoa. Let's fill that basket to the brim. Together, we can truly create a future where everyone, regardless of their background, has the right to a healthy environment and access to beautiful, safe, and inclusive public spaces. Let us act now with urgency and determination to build a just and equitable world for all. Let us embrace this role with pride and purpose, using our voices and talents to uplift our communities and preserve the spirit of our culture for future generations. I thank you, Roz, and your team for creating this platform on tonight. I thank you, those that are listening, for engaging and listening, and I hope what I have shared resonates with you and inspires us not just to celebrate our heritage, but to mobilize and to activate and to be more strategically and intentionally involved in changing what the trajectory can look like, and do so with a level of consciousness and sustainability and consistency and authenticity. I thank you again for indulging me. I am so excited and empowered. My cheeks are still on, like, bring them down, sis, because I am just elated. I'm elated with the number of people in this room on tonight. I'm elated that this movement has continued to just drive excitement and energy. And I look forward to joining hand in hand with so many of you on this call and so many of you that I'm sure will listen in after, joining in solidarity for what we know is a future that we once probably thought was never possible, right? But never say that the impossible is not possible. So we can make it happen. Let's drive ourselves to make it happen. Thank you all.
Hi, everyone. I want everybody to stretch. Doctor's orders, stretch. It's been a good amount of time, but we've heard some fantastic information and testimonies. But anyway, I'm Dr. Randy B. Nelson. I'm a board-certified pediatrician. I'm an author, former investment banking accountant, but now I'm a proud owner of my own multi-specialty health center located in Far Rockaway, Queens, called Welcome Care. And I am representing the island of Jamaica, but I was born in Brooklyn, the Republic of Brooklyn. But I am very, very proud of my Jamaican heritage. One thing that I love growing up in the household that I grew up in, we weren't rich. My parents came here, both my parents came here to the United States for a better life. But one thing they told me was that I could be anything that I wanted to be. Anything. As long as I had God and I worked hard. So appreciative of that. And that's what kind of propelled me through the various stages of my life. But I think so much has been covered today, this evening, that I really what I want to do is just share a personal story, and talk about why I love our vice president, because not only personally for me, I see myself in her. She's a Black woman. She's of Jamaican heritage. She's my sorority sister. We came of age in the 80s, when it's the best decade as far as I'm concerned. We're Black professional women that had to navigate these, navigate these difficult, I'm trying to be nice and not say what I want to say, but just navigate against being in white spaces. Basically, that's what I wanted to say. And that's not easy, especially when you get to certain levels in your career. But what I wanted to do was really just talk about a personal interaction with her. And I'm so happy my friend Veronica's on this call, because back in 2019, when Senator Harris was running for the Democratic, to be the Democratic candidate for president, my friend Veronica asked me to attend an event here in New York City. And it was a small event, like a fundraiser. The senator was going to, she was the guest of honor. And it was just about, like, I would say just about maybe about 100 people. It wasn't very large. It was very intimate. I was so happy. I was there. I think her niece was there. Her sister was there. And, she was giving her speeches and, talking, and she allowed Q&As, and I started asking about student loans. I'm a physician. Medicine was my second career. Before that, I was an investment banking accountant, but after, doing that for 14 years, I decided to go into medicine. And of course, unless you're born with a silver spoon in your mouth or a big truck, you have to take out loans. And physicians, we make, could make decent amount of money, but some of us are walking out of school with 200, 300, up to $500,000 in school loans. So that's been a big thing in my community. And I know it's been a big thing for anyone who attended college. You have, undergrads who are graduating with 100. So that, that was a big thing. So, I got up there and I asked her, I said, you're running for, the Democratic candidate for the presidency. And, what are you going to do about school loans? I'm here with my friend and, between us, we have tons of loans. What are you going to do about it? And she looked me dead in my eye and she said, if I'm president, I am going to do something about it. I am going to make sure there are reforms and changes to help individuals, whether they're physicians or whether they're teachers or lawyers. We're going to do something about student loans. Now, granted, she didn't become the Democratic candidate, but a year later, she was asked to be, to run as VP for President Biden. And you know what? She kept her promise, even though she wasn't able to do this as as a president at that point. She definitely, as part of the Biden-Harris administration, made tremendous changes for student loans. I was just looking at a statistic, and the Biden-Harris administration gave $167 billion in student loans. And I think that is absolutely phenomenal because most Americans who have student loans, it's a struggle, to spend $500-600 a month towards something. I mean, and it's almost like a racket, right? You start out with a loan amount of, I don't know, say $50,000. You make these payments each month, and then 10 years down the line or 5 years down the line, you're maybe down to $49,500. So the fact that, the Biden-Harris administration made these changes that really, really really changed people's lives, Americans' lives, was phenomenal. So when I think about that, a lot because, due to my work in the underserved community and in nonprofit, my loans were forgiven. But as a result of that, I've been able to open up my own practice in a underserved community in Queens, New York, where I'll be able to help and service and provide good health care to a population of folks who have been left behind, literally left behind. So, I am in debt. They forgave some debt of mine, but I am in debt to them. And I just, when she says something as a result of that meeting back in 2019, as a result of that gathering, I believe her. Everything she says on the campaigns trail, I know she's going to do it, or she's going to try to work for the people. She's done it as a prosecutor. She tried to established safety nets for those who were unfortunate, and I believe that she's going to do the same thing and work for the people. Her campaign slogan back then was Kamala Harris for the people. And I believe that. I'm so proud of her. I'm so proud to be around at this time to see something like that, because I believe in my heart and soul that she will be our next president, Madam President. And I know I'm going to work as hard as I can to help make that happen. In 2016, I worked very hard for the Hillary Clinton campaign. And I will, my advice is to just go out there, join, go on their websites, find out how you can be involved. It could be phone banking. I've done phone banking. I did, the campaigns used to provide buses to go to Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is a swing state. Pennsylvania is only an hour and a half away from New York City. So start small, get on website, KamalaHarris.com, and just sign up for something, do something, send postcards, calls, makes those trips, especially in the states, if you're able, the states that will make a difference, like the Pennsylvania or the Michigan. So anyway, I'm just so happy. Thank you for having me today. I just wanted to share that. And I think in 100 days, we're going to be celebrating Madam President. I'm so, so, so excited. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for everything that you shared. I really could empathize with what you were saying and feeling at the beginning of your remarks because I often refer to the dynamic that you are describing as pale and male, thriving in environments dominated by those who are pale and male.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Great
Yes,
job,
we can.
Rosalind. Wonderful, Rosalind. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Rosalind, you make us all proud.
Thank you so much. We look forward to it. We can do this again soon.
Si antes te hubiera conocido, seguramente estarías bailando hasta conmigo, no como amigos.